when I found bolt action, I discovered a group of people who were just really, really accepting of everybody's skill level. I mean, some people really want their guys to look top notch, and that's awesome. Not everybody can paint that well, but and then again, not everybody wants to paint. So if you're thinking about painting, I would recommend this style, especially to get 10, 20, 30 guys. Maybe you've got a box of guys that have just been sitting there. Maybe they're just primed like these with just a couple of starter colors on them to get you going. You kind of mess around with it and figure out what you like. And then once you find a style you like, then you settle on it, right? And then maybe you take one all the way through the process. Maybe you do the final wash and then you do the touch-ups. And if you like it, then you do the rest of them and you finish them off. But this provided me an opportunity to get a whole bunch of guys painted, something that I was happy with, and on the table so I could play the game, which I'm probably equally passionate about. I want my guys to look great, but I also I want to just get to playing. And if I spent all the time in the world painting, then I wouldn't, because I don't necessarily have as much time to play the game, which is why I appreciate bolt action, because I can paint a handful of guys. If I got 15 minutes, I can do one set of colors on a handful of guys. If I got 20 minutes, if I've got an hour, I can go and play a game with my brother in an hour. So that's why bolt action is so amazing. Even though it started on a few of them, I feel like this represents maybe the average workbench of painting for some of us. We have guys that are started, some that are just primed, kind of a mix match of stuff. But we're gonna make them look like these guys and then give them a wash and make them look like these guys. All these guys here, we did these and showed these in the intro video. All they need is the highlights and the basing, and they're done. They're ready to go in my book. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. I stick with prime colors mostly, or just simple base colors whenever I'm painting, because I do a lot of mixing. If you know your color wheel, you can go a long way in making whatever kind of colors you need to do those obscure shades or those different uniforms for the same army, but you want a specific group of guys. So that's why I mix. I always have white, black, maybe a green, a brown, red, blue. Sometimes I'll get some of these different colors just because they're a fun color. But for the basic stuff, and especially to keep in theme with this assembly line style that can get me a bunch of guys painted in pretty short order, like I did this whole group of about 50 guys here. I did this in a day. Well, I mean, it was half a day. I ran them through from literally just being primed to having the final wash on them. They just need the last couple steps. And that was, several hours. I happened to have that time available. It's rare. It probably would have taken me at least maybe a week to get through those guys if all I had was 30-minute increments, every night or something after the kids went to bed. If that's all I had, then I could still do those guys, but it would be quick. And that's the nice thing I like about this. So the assembly line process. So I got my colors. I use anything just to hold water in, because I use water-based paints. And I use not the cheapest brushes in the world, really decent brushes. I mean, these are artist brushes. They're typically for watercolor. Some of them are designed for oil paints and stuff like that, but I go to a craft store or an art store to get these. You could get the cheap dollar stuff, but you kind of run through them, and after a while, I mean, anybody knows your brushes can get beat up unless you have the really, really nice ones and you take really good care of them. These things can get really beat up. Hold on just a second, I gotta move that toy. Okay, so yeah, I use definitely an artist brush, but every now and again they do get worn out and you should replace them, but they're fairly inexpensive. You can grab a bundle of them from a craft store for $5, $6, $7. depending on how fancy you want to go. But since you're painting models and not landscapes, you don't have to have something very, very fancy. But you can find quite a variety of brushes. Some of these bigger ones that are 3/4 inch or so, they're great for doing vehicles, they're great for doing terrain. Make one color, use it. You guys will notice too that when I do paint, especially the initial stuff, I kind of slap it on, and that's okay. That's okay to do that, because you come back and you fine-tune stuff later. You cover all that stuff over anyway with, let's use a decent sized brush here. Okay. Mix it in. When you do the detail work at the end is when you'll find that, there we go. You can cover over any of those mistakes. And again, this may not be fancy enough for some people, and that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's kind of a skin tone. Now that's not a bad color for skin tone. In fact, why don't we just do that instead? These guys don't have their skin tone done on them yet, so I like this color. I don't want to get rid of it right now, so I'm just going to use it for the skin. Just do them real quick here. You'll find out where you can focus most of your energy with these guys. Maybe under the helmets isn't as important to you, you know. Save you some time wherever you can working on these guys. All right, getting a groove here. Got the skin on those guys, that's good. So I'll set them over here. Boom. Next guy. Skin. Do the face. Good hands. Again, it's okay to get it on other things. Not bad. Thumb up there. See, I'm getting it on the gun and stuff too. That's fine. Oh, his face is hard to see. So this is a guy where maybe, because he's wearing a scarf over his face, I mean, you're never going to see those eyes on the battlefield unless you flip them over. So you don't have to paint that, but it's up to you. So you'll find ways to make this fast. And, you know, you're going to make mistakes like with anything, but just don't be hard on yourself, you know. I think it's most important to know that, you know, try something. Doesn't work, that's okay. You learn from it. We can paint all over his helmet, but that's fine, see. Can't quite get in there. There's some guys that like to paint their models before they even assemble them, like if they're plastic, like some of these. Paint them on the sprue. And that's cool too, that gives you opportunity to get some of the areas that are harder to get. If you paint them before you assemble them, then you can really get some of those hard to reach areas. Whoops. Saved him on the pants. It's a good save. Once you wash, make things dark, you come back with the last final highlights. The highlights are what are gonna be noticeable from a distance. When you're playing and you're looking at these things from 3 feet away or so or more, you're gonna notice the guys because of their highlights, not because of their eyeballs, you know, or a little insignia on their shoulder. That's cool stuff, but not always necessary. Like I said before, I have done up to 60 guys in a day when I've had it, but that meant I was in a groove, went for it, and none of these guys are good enough, in my opinion, to ever put on any website or blog or anything. I'm not going to put them on WWPD. I'm not going to put them on Warlord website or anything and say like, hey, look at this army I'm working on because these look so amazing, I'm going to win awards. No, they're not that good. Leave the awards to the guys that actually deserve it. This is simply sharing with you guys what I do as someone who has limited resources to do this, limited time and limited energy. Sometimes, you know, you got kids. It can be a challenge, but that's okay. You know, since they're my priority and not my hobbies, I can drop this any second. If my kids need me or family comes over, I can just drop it. Yeah, the versatility of this is nice. I can pick it up and go. I can spend months not playing, not modeling, not doing anything like this, not rolling any dice, or how much it would pain me. But sometimes that happens in life, you know, sometimes life happens. You have to roll with it, and you don't get to delve into your hobbies as much, things you're really passionate about, things you really enjoy. Sometimes life just gets busy, and that's okay. So, you come back to it. And that's one thing I love about, I think, tabletop gaming in general, is just the ability to set it down when you need to. You know, it doesn't dictate my life. And I appreciate that. I appreciate things that don't dictate my life, especially if it's a personal choice of mine to engage in it. Like this hobby, I chose to engage in bolt action, invest in it, time and money, get together with friends and play. But I don't want it to control me. I feel like there are some game systems out there that can feel that way. They can feel overbearing in the sense that you feel like you have to get the newest, latest thing. I don't like that. I think that's unfair to the gamer. Because I feel like these games are supposed to be enriching to our lives. And cool thing about historical wargaming, newsflash, is that you are learning history at the same time as having fun. I mean, talk about history teachers. Dream. Like, man, we can learn and have fun. All right, last guy for the skin tone, and then we're gonna make the brown for the rest of the dudes. And do all their uniforms over. Now, I use paper towels because I like to do this. This, by the way, my nice little palette, fancy dancy, expensive palette. Yeah, it's just the back of my Warlord box, pizza box, you know, whatever, cereal box. Do whatever. All right, I'm gonna use whatever's left in this white and put some more brown, make it a little darker. A few drops in there. Mix it together. So, yeah, looks good to me. Test it out. It's still kind of a beige color, but that's all right. We'll use it because, keeping in mind that we're gonna put a wash on these guys later. So the wash is gonna be what's gonna make them real brown. So we're going for a very similar scheme to these guys that are done over here without the wash. They've got all their primary colors on them. Uniforms, equipment, skin color, all the basics are there. They're all covered, okay? And then you do the wash. And the final step is that doing the touch-ups. And that's when you can make those custom shades by mixing. And right now I'm thinking ahead. After I get these guys' uniforms done, so I want to be the same. So I'm going to do this, okay? Just slap it on. I'm going to do their boots. Then I'll do their rifles, okay? And I might come back over just real quick before we do a wash and just do a quick little touch up on their hats and helmets and stuff, just to do a quick green. And all it is, I'm just using this basic green on those. That's totally fine. Do enjoy coffee too. Coffee is a love of mine. But I live in the Great Pacific Northwest, and some say that that's kind of a cultural standard here. Of course, I know there are a lot of other parts of the world where they're like, yeah, coffee's our tradition too, buddy. You know, coffee's just kind of, you know what, maybe we just say this. Maybe we say coffee is a human tradition. Maybe we can say beer is a human tradition. Candy. I don't know. We've all got our guilty pleasures. This is one of mine. Bolt action. Love it. So I'm getting to the end of this batch. So I'll have to make another batch. But before I do, I'll probably need to put my daughter back to bed. She's getting tired. Sometimes it gets a little dry near the end, so I just dab a little water on that guy. Thin it out just a touch, not too much. Keep it going, keep it flowing. I'm gonna keep these guys fur hat. If they're wearing fur hats, they're gonna be gray. That's what I've decided a long time ago. They're gonna be gray. Maybe a highlight of brown or something like that. We'll figure that out. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. All right. So, got about let's see, 10 more guys to do there. We're down about 7 here. So 5, 6, yep, 7 there. And I gotta make another batch. Before I do that, I'm gonna go lay the daughter down for nighttime. Refill my coffee cup, and I'll be back. Mission accomplished. Baby down. Going to sleep, to clarify. All right, so we have 7 guys down here, about 10 or 11 guys left to do that on, so some more white. Now keep in mind we're this far along and we're already about half an hour into it with me talking and stuff. You'll find that you'll get into a groove, and there we go, that's nice. It looks beautiful. And it'll go fast. So just gonna see how long this takes. Oh, that's still kind of a flesh color. Looks exactly like their skin. A little darker. A little darker, please. Nice. That's still kind of a strong beige, but it's alright. Comfortable with it. You know, there's one thing about it took me a little while to learn it, especially when I was pretty new to tabletop gaming, that models unpainted can lead to a less satisfying game experience. Whether or not you believe that, it's true, it can. And I found on a personal level that if I painted my guys, even just this much, put some colors on them, the more I did to make them presentable when I played with them, the more enjoyment I got out of seeing them on the battlefield, and it made the game feel more alive and just exciting play. But if something looks presentable, if it looks decent on the table, you might actually find yourself having a more enjoyable game experience, especially if they're your troops on the table that are decently painted. I don't know, just playing with guys that constantly look like this, primed for like a year, and maybe just a green helmet, it just got dull, it got boring after a while. But again, this is for anybody who's like me, who needs a way to just get their guys looking decent, and they have limited resources. But they want to look decent, want to be proud of them, put them on the table to have a more enjoyable experience. This is what I'd like to share with you. It's just this style. That's all. That's all it is. Easy peasy. Okay. You can do your primer in darker colors. Some guys like black, some guys prefer gray. It just depends on your style, but I like white, even though I gotta cover more. You'd think that that might slow you down a little more. I don't feel like it does. It just, for me, I get so much time back from the speed of this assembly line painting that I feel like it doesn't matter. The only thing I really have to cover up at the end is just the base itself, and most of the time that consists of just putting a color, just doing black around the rim of the base, or brown or green or something, or whatever you want to do. You could even color code them for different squads. I know some guys like to do that. That's pretty cool. I don't have to do it right now, you know. I can come back and do it when I do the basing, but while I'm here, might as well add to it and we'll just do this, because when I put my basing stuff on, you know, when I put down the glue and dip it in the not flock. I don't use flock. I make my own stuff, again, because I'm cheap, and I fancy myself fairly resourceful. One of the most valuable things to learn as a new painter, for anybody who might be watching this and listening who is a new painter or new to the hobby or whatever you might be, I think going easy on yourself is so important, and not comparing yourself, the work that you do, the way you model, even the way you play the game, to anybody else, because that can be very, very defeating. You start comparing stuff that you do to other people, you're always going to find out that you're falling short somehow. Like, oh man, I don't do skin highlights as those guys, or I can't do eyes, you know, or something like that. Whatever it might be, that's fine, you know. I think practice, play with it, be diligent, don't give up, find your own style, but be proud of yourself, whatever it may look like. I mean, some of my first models, like when I was painting Warhammer guys, I mean, they looked like a 2-year-old did it. Some 2-year-olds are actually probably better than the stuff I was turning out, but it was just like, man, it looked so bad. But I wasn't okay with that. I was so hard on myself. I thought, oh my gosh, this sucks so much. It was the worst. And I'd look at those guys and be like, man, they are so terrible. And then I just I wouldn't even go play because it felt so bad. I didn't want to show them to anybody. I'm like, eh. And I didn't have the money to pay someone to do it either. So I'm like, I gotta do it myself. I'd scrounge coffee money and go buy another shade of paint or something, or buy some more brushes or something. But I'd come back to it eventually. You know, of course, I came back to it and gained confidence because I finally turned out some models that I was proud of, and I thought, man, that's really cool. And yeah, it's different and maybe doesn't look as good as some of the other stuff, but don't compare yourself to other people. I think that can be a downfall early on, and it might set the grounds for you to never pick up a paintbrush again. And I think that's kind of sad. Just a little sad. After I do these guys' boots, I'll go back over with green and I'll do their gear because I want their gear to look green too. And touch up the helmets where I messed up. Actually, what I might do before that is because I still got black here, and I've still got quite a bit of it. I'll add some white, make a gray, and do the fur hats first. Finish up all that. Then I'll do green. Last color will be the rifles. Got that light reddish, kind of that rusty brown paint over here that I like for my rifles. But if you guys are like, after this video set, if you guys are like, nah, that's cool, I've seen enough, I'll just go back to gaming and maybe do some of my terrain videos later, especially if you guys are really interested in seeing what I've done. I use a lot of recycled stuff, and I don't typically buy things from the hobby stores to do my terrain. I like to find household items and things like that. So, one of those guys. One of those weirdos. Proud of it. Alright, let's do some fur hats. Got some white in here. Now, I could spend the time on this dude. Some of these guys have some really awesome details, like the fact that the fur comes right up to his cheeks because he's got the ear flaps tied down. Looks really cool, and I could go in there and I could do those if I wanted to. But then again, that's one of those details that it takes extra time, and I'm like, yeah, you know what, forget it. Because I'm only looking at the guy from about this far away, right? I'm just gonna forget. I'm gonna be okay with not being a perfectionist because I am actually by nature perfectionist. Let's get the rest of these fur hats done. I'm gonna switch over, but I'm still gonna have some of this black and white left. So what I might do instead of switching immediately over to green is I don't want this to go to waste because I'm not a waster. Kind of sounds like a Harry Potter character or something. The Wasters. Like something from Hunger Games. Alright, so I'm gonna have quite a bit of gray here, so what I'll do is I'll touch up the fur caps of those guys over there, and I'm gonna do kind of a lighter mix. Oh yeah, they're looking real Soviet. In fact, they're looking super Soviet. Good old dry brush and highlights, man. Thank God for this technique. So simple, yet so effective. Now, I think for some of these guys' coats too, because I kind of wanted to do that gray. Some of these guys' jackets, I'm gonna go ahead and just do it. I'm gonna try it out, see how I like it. Just do some light. Do the shoulders. Alright. Chest. Gotta get those spots that, like if you're looking at, the sun were shining down on them, what are the spots that would really pop out the most? Shoulders, top of the head, back, the arms, knees, tip of the boots, that kind of stuff. So, which means you don't necessarily have to get down inside, under the gun and in there. Just kind of do that. See how it looks, right? Simple enough. I like that. I mean, that's not bad. You guys are gonna kick butt, tablemen. Something I notice about the Russians too is that it seems like most of the time, if I want to play against a force that I want to be the bad guys so that I can defeat them, have some justice, I usually lose. Like, And I'm making the list for the bad guys too. You know, I make a lot of different army lists, and that's one thing I really enjoy doing. I make some lists that are tough to beat. Like, why do I do that? Why don't I make just a really crappy list that I can play against? But then where's the fun in that, right? If you always win. But I have fun whether I win or lose. Sometimes I have more fun losing because it was such a challenge. I like a good challenge, and I don't mind losing. I don't mind failing. Maybe that's weird. Yeah, that makes me weird. I know I'm weird anyway, but yeah, that makes me like ultra weird. I don't know. No one's told me that yet, so. Look at these guys, man. They're looking radical. Can do all the coats. Just gonna do them. Kind of cool color. More than likely not an actual shade of the Russian uniform, but I like it. I think it looks pretty cool. I think it looks kind of post-war Soviets, especially like let's call it KGB blue. That's KGB blue. Now, one of those details that you don't have to do is it does stand out though. It's one of those details that you could do if you want to spend the time to do it, and it does make a difference, but it's not the end of the world. Like if you wanted to put this guy on the table now, he'd look cool. He'd look just fine, right, to play with. But the straps, shoulder straps, suspenders, backpack straps, things like that, don't necessarily have to do the ones on the chest because you barely ever see them, and even some of the pouches up front, but everything that's on their backs is going to be very exposed. So if you want to take the time, get that bright brown or whatever color it is you want, some kind of greenish brown or something, and just do a nice single stripe. You know, it's one of those details you could do, you don't have to. Looks pretty cool though. Alright, so I gotta finish a few more of these coats. So here I'm delving into some of the guys that wasn't originally gonna do on this video, but that's okay. I think this is just an honest painting session for me. So let's just show you guys, and I'll fast forward and zip through it so you're not watching me for like an hour. It's been an hour now, so we've gotten pretty far in an hour, I'd say. You know, the equivalent for me would be if I were doing one guy at a time to do the whole guy at once instead of this assembly line thing. One guy would take me 45 minutes maybe, and he'd be done, but gosh, I would feel so far behind. I feel like I could never get ahead. This way. I think I've got a chance. I've got a fighting chance. Alright, back now. Took me a few minutes to get these guys. Finish up that gray. It turned out, I think, pretty cool. I like it. I like it a lot. So these guys just need some touch up on their helmet, a little skin, rifle, maybe a little bit of the gear, and we'll do that in maybe another video to finish off things. But right now, since we're doing the assembly line, we'll just and then the basing will happen later. But I wanted to utilize that gray while I had it. All right, and I have been using the same brush this whole time. That may seem like sacrilege to some, but hey, if I'm liking a good brush, I'll just stick with it. All right, green. We're just gonna do and decide what you want to be what color, so that when you're going through, you're not making the decision on each individual guy. That'll slow you way down. So for these guys, I've already made the decision that all of their combat type gear is going to be green, like their ammo pouches and things like that. Let's see how we're doing here. See, I missed a little black on that guy's boot right there. Not to worry. when we go back over for the final touch-ups, we'll be okay. 6 more dudes with the green. And then I'm gonna do the rifles. And then I think they're gonna be ready for the wash. Like I said in my intro video, I've had these Russians assembled and just primed for, gosh, at least a year, probably more though. I think they've looked the way that they look for over a year. And I've just played with them that way. And I got used to it and became complacent with it and thought, you know, I don't really feel like it. Oh, I got this renewed vigor. Get them painted, even if they're not my favorite army, even if I may not play with them myself. Doesn't mean I can't paint them. And it's a good opportunity, which is why I started doing these videos, is painting Russians. I mean, typically if you're going to be playing Russians, you're probably going to be having a lot of models on the table, which may not be the faction of choice if you've got a limited budget to start out the game, because it means not only you're going to have to build a lot of models, you're going to have to buy them, build them, get them painted. Also might mean you need more dice. So there's a little bit of an extra cash investment in some of those things. But if you want to play a faction that is mostly elite troops, and that's by and large because Russians have a special rule that allows you to have a free 12-man squad of inexperienced guys with all the fixins, which I think in the book as it currently is just rifles and anti-tank grenades. Oh, and they can be green. Which is a very cool rule. I like green. But someone told me if you're starting out in any tabletop game and you have a limited budget and you want to spend as little on models just to get yourself started, you can always go the route of making more veteran force, which means fewer models on the table, and that's not a bad thing. It may be a steep learning curve, but then again, so can too many models on the table. But then you're not investing in 100 models that you have to build and then paint. You know, all that. All that. I think it's just worth thinking about. All right, that's those guys. Clean them off. We're gonna do rifles. We're gonna get out this color. Okay, so once I've finished these guns, we're gonna zip through this. Then we're gonna do the wash, and we're gonna call it. I say that's good. It's been 2 hours so far. 2 hours with a couple of breaks. So far I've gotten. Not bad. Not always this much time available. So that's cool. Very smooth. All right, 2 more guys and we're done with the rifle color. That's it. Wash time. For this one, I'm gonna use a heavier, thicker brush. Alright guys, there it is. So you saw where we started. I mean, most of them had like a helmet on, paint color on there, but it's very basic, very quick. It doesn't, painting the models doesn't have to take so much time. It can, and that's totally fine. But it doesn't have to. And you should never feel like you have to do it that way. Alright? Actually, in the 2 hours, we did. We did all these from prime and basic colors. Took them through the assembly line. Did all the basic colors and then put the wash on. So now all we have to do is the final touch-ups and the basing, and they're ready for the table. But in that 2 hour period of doing those 24 some, we also put gray touch-ups on all the fur hats that these guys done from yesterday and their coats. And I think they turned out really awesome. I mean, technically you could just base these and play with them. They look cool. I think so. If you don't think they look cool, please be nice. You can be honest, but please be nice. Remember, my priority here is to get them on the table and play with them, not win awards. So I know there's much to be desired as far as that. But yeah, they look cool. I mean, hey, that's Russians on the tabletop, right? Ruskis. So next video we're going to do, I think, the final touch-ups and the basing, and I'll work on that in the next couple of days, and hopefully we'll get that done, and then that will inspire me to finish my Germans and my Norwegians and my French Foreign Legion and my Partisans and a whole bunch of other guys that I have to do. Oh, my French Cavalry too that I got from Crusader Miniatures. Those are awesome, by the way. Oh, okay. I'll have to do a quick paint on those the cavalry. I have a dozen of them. And we'll do one of those. So, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the final video, okay?